more towards rural, towards irrigation and all of that. That's going to be critical, but that has been missing. The piece which has been missing is the states, and that is where we need both in terms of infra spend and capex, plus also reforms.
But the states have actually been spending. The states have been front-loading on capex spends as well. But Sanjeev Puri, on the point that was being made there by CB, and you talked about the rural economy as well, do you believe that we're likely to see new schemes being announced or better funding of existing schemes like NREGS, PM Awas, a higher installment as far as PM Kisan, etc. is concerned? What would the expectation be, and what do you believe will actually move the needle from a rural consumption perspective?
So, let's look at it in two buckets. Now that I'm sitting next to an bucket business is infectious. So first is that the short term, and the other is more medium to long term, so that we actually are looking at a thriving rural economy. So short term, I think, has to be dealt with by one is, I think there is some amount of relief and stimulus is required by, can there be something more given by way of Manrega or PM Kisan. So whilst we believe that the focus should be on capacity building, capital formation, empowering the economy, but a bit of this is required at this given the current context. Second is, I think the having more infra spends in rural also will create non-farm jobs. So that's the second piece. Now, in addition to this, I think for medium and long term, what we do need to address is the issue of agriculture. It's expected to be better this year because the weather forecast right now, it seems to be in a better position than last year. But on a consistent basis, how do we unlock the potential of agriculture, given that still, nearly half the workforce is there? And whilst we can take people away from agriculture, but it'll continue to be substantive.
Right.
So I think there are some good policy instruments that have been in play in the past, like farmer collectives, bringing digital technology, trying to bring the benefits of agri-tech, through things like Drone Didi. So we need to look at a system how we can scale this. Okay. The question is of really scaling it in magnitude,
right,
and how do we create clusters of FPOs around dedicated crops, and how do we create an ecosystem of the ag tech players there so farming comes as a service. We need to launch the agri-tech, India's agri-stack, which is I believe in fairly advanced stage by the ministry now, so that we empower the rural economy, because these are the tools to provide the best practices to the agriculture sector.
Right.
And we need to also work on building resilience, because weather events are there to stay. Yeah. And there are some pathways available. Some research has to happen. Some pathways are available. We need to work on that. Yeah. But what is also important is that, which has also been covered in the the economic survey, is there needs to be reform in this sector.
Yeah.
There need to be reform in this sector.
Removing the impediments for agriculture growth, I think that was a whole chapter in the survey.
Yeah. And one other point I want to make for medium term is really to empower the the youth in the rural sector to partake in other economic opportunities, is all about skilling and the social infrastructure. So given that we have better connectivity, physical and digital, can we create some integrated rural development hubs?
Okay.
And there will be participation from industry also there on skilling, etc.
That's the tripartite compact that the survey spoke of. But Rajiv Memani, that's as far as agri is concerned. What about manufacturing? Do you believe that there will be course corrections, especially in terms of import duties where the inversions currently continue to exist? Also, FDI, while the survey did say that, look, it's getting even more challenging to draw in FDI, and we have started to see that decline showing up in numbers as well. What do you believe the budget is likely to signal on manufacturing specifically, more FDI in particular as well?
Yeah, I mean, if you actually go to the fundamental, I mean, if you take a very high level view, Shireen, if you compare this with what happened in the vote on account versus where we are today, the government has probably, depending on where they want to land up at, about 1 lakh or 1.5 lakh crore to spend.
Yeah. Question
is, where do they allocate the spending, and how do they tinker with taxes if they have to rebalance amongst different sort of levels? So if you look at that 1.5 lakh, I think a lot of that probably will go into rural income inequality, agri, that kind of stuff, given what we have seen. So insofar as manufacturing is concerned, my view is that, again, it will go towards trying to see how we can drive employment up. So, can they flex some on 80JJ, AA, some inverted customs duty, this thing. And to be fair, I think we're seeing some early success in some parts, especially in the EMS side, in the defense sector, the semiconductor commitments, the entire energy transition manufacturing. I think companies are taking the first steps. It takes time. It takes 2 to 3 years before these things gain full momentum. As far as FDI is concerned, FDI is a factor of a lot of things. FDI is also a factor of what interest rate movements overseas are. And also a factor of what valuations in India are. So really there's not that much in the budget that they can do to but if interest rates start moderating outside, and a lot of the FDI blip that happened, if you actually analyze, was in the venture capital industry because you had massive flows coming through, which dried up. I think they may start picking up again. And as interest rates moderate, I think you may have more FDI coming through. And for the third thing, which is a longer bet, is for non-financial investors to identify big projects in India or to look at bigger acquisitions in India. It's still challenging.
It's still challenging.
So I think that it's not a budget issue, but
it's not a budget. It's a larger issue and a larger debate. How it's also history for Nirmala Sitharaman, 7th consecutive budget. She surprised us with a 56-minute budget when the expectation was that the interim budget would be much longer. From a legacy perspective, is there anything that you believe that she's going to throw in this budget to really establish the historic significance of it?
I think what we have seen glimpses of that in the economic survey, and one of the things that started happening, if I may say, is building trust between different stakeholders in the economy. So trusting industry to be a livelihood generator or from a creator of wealth. And therefore, that can play a huge role both in enabling private sector participation, as well as taking the common man ahead in terms of participating in the economy through increased consumption and greater employment. I think that's going to be a significant direction which really take for the next 25 years.
In terms of direction, and the expectation is that the fiscal math is likely to be a continuation of what we saw in the interim budget, but perhaps a departure from things like privatization, perhaps a departure from things like strategic disinvestment, etc. I know that was part of the wish list, including a significant amount that you've pegged on asset monetization. Do you believe that there is appetite to see things like that, strategic disinvestment, privatization, or has industry tempered its expectations?
I think this is an area where I think industry has said that we should continue that path, and the government has also announced very clearly in the past a policy with respect to where they would stay invested and where they would not. We must recognize that there are challenges in doing these. These are not easy things to do, but I think the work on this should be on, and we should not lose focus on it, because these are, I think, important things to do.
Important things to do. So the baton being handed to industry. The question is now: Are you ready to run? Ready to run, Vinayak Chatterjee?
I think industry is always ready to run, but the other thing that industry needs very clear directions on across the board is that the economy is transiting from a fossil fuel economy to a green economy, and this transition comes with a lot of pain, a lot of fiscal and financial pain to all the players. So I'm expecting the budget to discuss this issue. And one of the expectations is that one does have insider knowledge that a bunch of multilateral development banks have actually volunteered to set up a green energy transition fund with government participation to put all the other cesses like a compensatory afforestation, coal cess, and etc. into it, and probably make a 10-15 lakh crore green energy transition fund. That's certainly an expectation to help everybody transit, the nation to transit.
So 13 lakh crore rupee capex number and a green energy transition fund perhaps will find their way in the budget. We will know soon enough. 15 minutes to go for the finance minister to present the speech. Sanjeev Puri, Rajiv Memani, CB, and Vinayak Bucketwala Chatterjee. Many thanks for joining us here from the CII CNBC TV 18 budget headquarters. There's a lot more. Guys, back to you with the markets.
All right, Shireen, thank you very much for that. So all eyes, we are just about 40 minutes away from the big announcements coming through. The markets just around 50 odd points lower, so approaching the big event. with some nerves, you can perhaps say that. Our next guest on the show is someone who, of course, looks at the market in great detail and has been looking at tax in perhaps greater detail in the last couple of weeks. Samir Arora, founder and fund manager at Helios Capital, is with us. Samir, I think you've been talking about this even before we got to the tax experts. Do not touch capital gains tax. Are you going to reiterate that? Is that your starting point today? What's the sense? About 20 minutes to go.
Now, I'm not reiterating because the budget would already have been made.
That's true.
But I think the tone and language in the economic survey was very bad. You know, we have a slide, and I guess many other India fund managers would have this slide that India is financialization is one of the big themes of India. We recently launched a fund, and that financialization goes into microfinance and small businesses and credit cards and mutual funds and insurance and whatever. And then for them to say that financialization also is bad, it's a new line that I've heard in my life in 30 years.
But Samir, hi, good morning, and thanks for joining us. I think you're in France, so thanks for the extra effort. And but
Actually,
after what has
it's
come
more fun to see it from far.
from far away, further away from Singapore. Now, so has the expectation after that mention in the economic survey of something coming gone up a little bit, Samir, in your mind?
I think nearly guaranteed now that something bad is going to happen because there are 2-3 places where they've mentioned the market, and I don't understand. The normal economic survey is to lead the government towards long-term future plans on how we should privatize, how we should reduce subsidies, or whatever has been the historical thing that and you know, in the past, every time we remember, we used to get excited about the economic survey, and then the government would not listen. So hopefully they don't listen or see it even this time. But the thing is, 2-3 times to mention again and again. One is to say that the market cap of India to GDP is very high. These things make limited sense, where even everybody in the world says that you are not supposed to have these kind of one-line indicators to talk about market, and the market is made up of bottom up this thing, and to come up with these simple one-liners that the market cap to GDP is high, or to say in an economic survey that speculation in India is high. What is speculation? If you open 3 casinos, the speculation would go there. So nobody says that the people going to a casino are very high in US or things like that. These are all our own creations. You can tune them, fine-tune them, tax them, stop these weekly settlements. You don't have to put them in the economic survey.
Right.
But the worst one is to say financialization has gone too far.
Samir, what is the...
It is one of our slides that it has just started 3-4 years ago.
Samir, what will do the least damage? What will do the most damage from a capital market taxation perspective? Because you were saying something is coming.
So my expectation now is, based on our discussion internally, just randomly, that what can they do and try and balance everything is that they change the tenure to 2 to 3 years of the short term, which will be very bad, because that effectively would, and then change the tax by maybe 5% here or there, make it 15 or 20, still keep the long term at 10. So keep telling the world that we have not changed the long term capital gains tax, but you have changed the tax rate for the country by 5-7%.
Samir, my sense is their fear was not so much about the market levels, because it is in some areas where the market levels are high. Their fear is more with F&O volumes. So
F&O volume is not worthy of an economic survey.
No. What can we expect today if you think...
Yesterday I was also calm. But then suddenly...
Samir, we are only 15 minutes to the 0 hour. So I'm asking you, if the fear of Nirmala Sitharaman is, F&O volumes are very high, is there anything she can do?
That she doesn't have to do. SEBI can do by even
so
not
you don't
even directly
anything.
do. No, you can even tell the exchanges not to come up with these weekly settlements. You don't even have to say it in a, like a formal say. Just tell them we will not approve or whatever. Or I don't know whether that approval is needed. But that is not a budget-worthy item.
Okay.
You can say a little bit, but you can't separately. What can you do?
Yeah.
Okay, Samir, stay on. We have to take a very quick break. 15 minutes to go. We'll also have Dinesh Kanabar back with us. We'll have Ashok Wadhwa joining in this discussion. 15 minutes to go till we hit 11.
टमी को कम करने के लिए ना सर्केडियन रिदम को समझना ही पड़ेगा।
पेट अंदर करने में बहुत पापड़ बेलने पड़ते हैं। थैंकफुली इंडेक्स फंड में इन्वेस्ट करने का फंडा है क्विक एंड सिंपल, जस्ट लाइक 1 2 3 so one cost more for you. Quick and hassle-free investment option. Match the market effortlessly. जब लाइफ मांगे मोर, बढ़ो इंडेक्स फंड्स की ओर। म्यूचुअल फंड निवेश बाजार जोखिमों के अधीन है। योजना से संबंधित सभी दस्तावेज सावधानी पूर्वक पढ़ें।
I'm endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris because she's ready to step up, bring on.
Okay, well, 13 minutes to go for the union budget. 11 o'clock, the finance minister will stand at the floor of the parliament and start presenting the budget. We'll, of course, await details. Samir Arora is with us at Helios Capital, all the way from France. Samir, you've scared all of us good here. Something bad is coming, you've told us.
No. See, I'm saying I was quite happy on my holiday here, but that economic survey put me off a little bit, yes. So I tell you what I feel, alive at the moment. So it looks a bit bad.
I got it. But, so let's just assume that nothing on the capital gain, nothing bad nothing comes. Taxation is not tinkered because, exactly 6 months from now, you've got another budget. The next one, right? So this is the middle of the year. So there is also one logic being given that why do something like rationalization of capital gains now? So let's just say nothing is touched there. What is the market really looking for in terms of queues, etc.? There will be a vision statement for the next 5 years.
So I would think,
first budget of the NDA 3. What are you watching out for?
So I think rest of the budget will be actually good. Good, by good we mean that I don't think it will be populist. A little bit on the margin is okay, because that populism can be shown via state elections, state budgets, rather than having to do it in the central budget. The other thing is that there will definitely be some relaxation on tax rates for the taxpayer. That means either change the bracket, increase it from that 7 lakh to, I don't know, 9 lakh or 10 lakh or whatever, or tinker a little bit here or there. And that would be generally not counted as populism, because some of that is fair over time as inflation goes up. And I think the other thing is that the extent of which you were discussing in the panel discussion just before this, that there is more investment required of the private sector. And we can see it already of the state-owned companies, the PSUs. The PSUs are making big announcements on investments, which means that the government is basically saying, now you make on your balance sheet rather than us making that, because Maybe there are more demands on the central budget, but the budget per se, ex tax, I think will not be bad. It could be not greatly good, but at worst neutral, which itself is also good enough as far as the market participants are concerned, because the market generally is doing well. So as long as plus minus that it moves on, it's okay in life.
So
But let's hope that, it's not all bad. Very quickly going to Ashok as well. Ashok, great to have you on. I think, everybody is worried about this whole issue of whether household savings are moving to the capital markets in too aggressive a fashion. This has become the biggest talking point. Do you expect anything in the budget that addresses it?
I personally don't think that they're going to tinker with capital gains on cash deliveries. Household savings going into financial markets is great. I think it's eventually some level of maturity in our financial markets. And I think that that diversity was needed in my view. Having said that, the absolutely lower class of the Indian population starting to invest in F&Os is a matter of worry, particularly because that's the class that the government wants to protect. And, we know who's gaining in the F&O side, right? It's the large global hedge funds that are really winning on the F&O side. So I certainly think that there will be a change in tax legislation to discourage that piece, the F&O piece, and try and protect the lowest community. And they can do it easily.
We should put Samir next on the window.
No,
It's a
no.
large global hedge fund. Samir is, I don't know if Samir is listening.
No, I think they're referring to different kinds. I think it's the Jane Street.
I'm not referring to Samir.
I'm just joking. But go on, Samir, go on.
There can be no tax because those guys are not paying any tax. So you'll have to discourage them by increasing their STT a little bit. That's all you can do with them. Because if these small guys are, anyway, you're saying the smallest investors, and then they are losing money every day. So corporate tax won't change that. Or a capital gains won't change that. Only STT change can happen, which is what I've been saying forever. Increase STT, please give away our capital gains also. Increase it to whatever level you want. You simultaneously control the volume. You can simultaneously make the cost of speculation high. And it's easier to collect and easier to get it in bad years also, because otherwise capital gains tax is collected only in good years. And we start thinking how much government is losing in a good year, but then there are 3 bad years and you will still collect STT.
So STT is one route. Just very quickly, Ashok, and Dinesh mentioned this before you joined us, that either you hike STT or just call speculative income as a different class of income and put it under the marginal peak rate. Maybe take it back up to 42%, what used to be the peak rate. What's your sense?
So I think STT is certainly one way, don't just do it on one leg of the transaction, do it on both legs of the transaction, increase the cost a little. So the person who's earning on the margin doesn't have the incentive to participate. But I think, the exemption that was granted a few years ago, excluding F&O trades from definition of speculative income under Section 28, that needs to go back to the original format.
So treat it as business income.
Treat it as business income and treat it with full tax so that you don't get the benefit of capital gains tax.
It's the opposite. The exemption which came in treats it as normal business income. It needs to go to speculative
income. So, that's what I meant.
So I think we have to thank Samir. Samir, you can please go and take your trip to Moulin Rouge or the Eiffel Tower or have your Bordeaux wine.
And please be back, Samir. I think
as long as you're back into us.
I'm stuck today here watching the budget, so not to worry.
All right. Thanks a lot for that, Samir. Well, I think Shireen has some guests as well. Shireen, 5 minutes to go, I believe.
No. I have no guess, Lata. I have a guess, and this is what I am picking up at this point in time on the back of the conversations that I've been having, is that there has been a flurry of activity in the agriculture department in the last few days, and a lot of information has been sought. My guess, and as I said, it's my guess that at least as many of our experts were also pointing out, that from a rural consumption stimulus measure point of view, PM Kisan, I would look at the number as far as PM Kisan is concerned. Even in the interim budget, the expectation was that the installment would have been indexed for inflation and there would have been a higher amount. So I don't know whether we're finally going to see that in the budget, but what we can say is that there's been a flurry of activity with information being sought from the agriculture department in the last few days pertaining to PM Kisan. So that's certainly going to be something to watch out for. And, other numbers that I think Pranjal also specifically brought that up when we talk about social sector spending, so things like NREGS, etc., are we likely to see higher allocations for existing schemes that may move the needle as far as the rural economy is concerned? That will, of course, be something to watch out for. But what we're literally, I think, 4 minutes away now before the finance minister addresses the nation and presents her 7th speech. But some of those numbers, and just the point that Vinayak Chatterjee made, and I think this is again something that we're picking up here from industry, that, you know, the narrative that the government is sending out seems to be, look, we have done the heavy lifting. It is your time now. It is your turn now. But for that pivot to happen in the interim, could it come at the cost of growth? And is that why they have factored in a much more prudent growth number of 6.5% to 7%? But of course, these are the conversations that are happening behind the scenes here at our budget headquarters. Back to you guys.
God, that Shireen, just on agriculture itself, you know, the way they handled the MSP, there was no welfareism about it. So we'll have to really wait and see. But, you know, 2 quick tax changes that you are, that is uppermost in your mind, Dinesh Kanabar. BEPS, anything would you expect? Or just anything?
So BEPS, certainly something will come in, and it has to come in because India is among the last few countries where domestic legislation has not come in. It's needed, anticipated. I won't go into technicalities of pillar 1, pillar 2. I think that's not relevant at this point of time, but India certainly will participate in that whole thing. The second thing, and which is of course most important for me, is that there has been a very significant representation to the government that we need to relook at the litigation scenario. It's just been accumulating. There are bottlenecks after bottlenecks. A commissioner appeals, which is the first litigation scenario, is stuck up for a few years now. Tribunal is sitting literally with very minuscule work, and commissioner appeals is not working. How does one address that? That's something which we need to see. There has been, and this happens every year, Lata, so sometimes one gets skeptical about it, as to whether government can come up with some sort of a settlement scheme where everything does not need to litigate, but you can resolve an issue on preponderance of probability. A mechanism has been suggested. Let's see what comes out of that. And the last thing from my perspective is that, is there an ability of the government to come back and say that the 15% tax regime which was there for new manufacturing companies, can that be extended? If you want to investment in chips and whatever else, then that's something which is very important.
Well, you know, we've got a couple of minutes to go for the budget speech to start. We have Ramesh Damani also joining in, market veteran, needs no introduction, member, Bombay Stock Exchange. Sir, a couple of minutes away. So maybe, you know, one question to you. Do you see a big vision being outlined for the next 5 years? And what would you watch out for from the budget?
You know, most people forget, but the historic budget that Manmohan Singh delivered on liberalization took place on 24th July 1991, exactly 33 years ago. And that has changed the course of the Indian economy. But now, are we going to get to the second stage of reforms? The government has been promising us what they call Viksit Bharat, complete roadmap for industrialization, not for the next 30 years, but for the next 20 years. And I think the government and the public and the markets are expecting some intellectual architecture as Manmohan Singh delivered, you know, liberalization, cut down on tariffs, privatization. I think there's some sort of expectations built into the budget that this will be also a big bang budget outlining a lot of policy structures for the government. So yes, we are expecting that, but a lot of the hard work into the economy has already been done. So we're not expecting many changes, but I think there will be big budget reform.
Okay, Ramesh, just stay on. Ashok, just very quickly, another ask has been this 20% buyback tax. Through the stock market, I mean, take it away or make some changes. Anything on buybacks or dividends?
I think it makes sense to do that. I mean, you know, if you have one regime for secondary transactions, you can't have a different regime for buybacks because it results in the same thing. But unfortunately, I don't expect a change happening in that at this point of time.
The issue is double. I mean, the seller, buyer, both paying the tax, right? I mean, that's so.
No, it's the company paying the tax.
The company paying the tax. But the challenge is that they're equating buyback to dividend. And they're saying that if dividend is double taxed because, you know, the recipient is paying tax, then why should buyback, which is really a proxy to dividend distribution, why should that not have a higher tax?
So a quick word there.
So higher tax, you're actually saying
no, I'm saying higher in
tax
terms of capital gains versus our.
I think the point really is that be careful what you wish for. So the industry has been pushing for buyback tax removal. If it happens and if it gets equated with capital gains, we are okay. But if it gets equated with dividend, as it happened in the context of dividend, then you would be in a worse situation.
Okay,
and that's
to take your point. All right, gentlemen, we are like, it's 0 hour, so we will not interrupt you in the middle of a sentence. Let's just wait for the finance minister to start. The cameras are all panned to Parliament and to the speaker, and whether he ushers in and asks the finance minister to speak. It's 11 by our clock, so let's wait and see if it synchronizes with the Parliament's clock, and the markets are just about flat.
Absolutely
Not
flat.
moved
Lala.
at all,
Yeah.
you would say. There was in the morning a green start, but after that, flat as flat can get.
There you go. I think
I think
we're
we're
kicking it
starting
off.
proceedings in Parliament.
माननीय सदस्यगण, मुझे अपनी ओर से तथा सदन के माननीय सदस्यों की ओर से अंतर संसदीय संघ आईपीयू की प्रेसिडेंट और तंजानिया संयुक्त गणराज्य की नेशनल असेंबली की अध्यक्ष माननीय डॉक्टर तुलिया एक्सन का स्वागत करते हुए अत्यंत प्रसन्नता हो रही है। वे हमारी सम्मानित अतिथि के रूप में भारत की आधिकारिक यात्रा पर आई है। यह हमारे लिए खुशी की बात है कि डॉक्टर एक्सन बजट सत्र को देखने के लिए यहाँ उपस्थित है। माननीय डॉक्टर तुलिया एक्सन शुक्रवार दिनांक 19 जुलाई 2024 को भारत पहुंची। उन्होंने 21 जुलाई 2024 को आगरा का भ्रमण किया और इस समय वह विशेष बॉक्स में आसीन है। हम भारत में उनके सुखद और सफल प्रवास की कामना करते हैं। हम अंतर संसदीय संघ के प्रेसिडेंट के रूप में उनकी भूमिका के लिए सफलता की भी कामना करते हैं। उनके माध्यम से हम तंजानिया गणराज्य की संसद के सदस्यों, तंजानिया की सरकार तथा वहां की मित्र जनता को बधाई और शुभकामनाएं देते हैं। माननीय सदस्यगण, जैसा कि आपको समाचार भाग 2 के माध्यम से पहले ही सूचित किया जा चुका है कि माननीय वित्त मंत्री जी के बजट भाषण की प्रतियां हार्ड कॉपी के रूप में उपलब्ध कराई जाएगी। अतः बजट प्रस्तुत हो जाने के पश्चात माननीय सदस्य कृपया बजट भाषण की अपनी अपनी प्रति प्रकाशन काउंटर से प्राप्त कर लें। आपको ये भी सूचित किया जाता है कि माननीय मंत्री द्वारा बजट प्रस्तुत किए जाने के पश्चात बजट की प्रतियां आपको मेंबर्स पोर्टल के माध्यम से भी उपलब्ध करा दी जाएगी। माननीय वित्त मंत्री श्रीमती निर्मला सीतारमण।
Honorable Speaker, I present the budget for 24-25. Introduction. The people of India have reposed their faith in the government led by Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi and re-elected it for a historic third term under his leadership. We are grateful for their support, faith, and trust in our policies. We are determined to ensure that all Indians, regardless of religion, caste, gender, and age, make substantial progress in realizing their life goals and aspirations. Global context. The global economy, while performing better than expected, is still in the grip of policy uncertainties. Elevated asset prices, political uncertainties, and shipping disruptions continue to pose significant downside risks for growth and upside risks to inflation. In this context, India's economic growth continues to be the shining exception and will remain so in the years ahead. India's inflation continues to be low, stable, and moving towards the 4% target. Core inflation, that is non-food and non-fuel, currently is 3.1%. Steps are being taken to ensure supplies of perishable goods reach markets adequately. Interim budget. As mentioned in the interim budget, we need to focus on 4 major castes, namely the Garib, Mahilaye, Yuva, and Annadata, the poor, women, youth, and the farmer. For Annadata, we announced higher minimum support prices a month ago for all major crops, delivering on the promise of at least a 50% margin over costs. Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana was extended for 5 years, benefiting more than 80 crore people. Administrative actions for approval and implementation of various schemes announced in the interim budget are well underway. The required allocations have been made. Budget theme. Turning attention to the full year and beyond in this budget, we particularly focus on employment, skilling, MSMEs, and the middle class. I'm happy to announce the Prime Minister's package of 5 schemes and initiatives to facilitate employment, skilling, and other opportunities for 4.1 crore youth over a 5-year period, with a central outlay of 2 lakh crore rupees. I will speak about them shortly, while more details may be seen in the annexure. This year, I've made a provision of 1.48 lakh rupees, 1.48 lakh crore rupees for education, employment, and skilling. Budget priorities. The people have given a unique opportunity to our government to take the country on the path of strong development and an all-round prosperity. In the interim budget, we promise to present a detailed roadmap for our pursuit of Vikasit Bharat. In line with the strategy set out in the interim budget, this budget envisages sustained efforts on the following 9 priorities for generating ample opportunities for all. Number 1, productivity and resilience in agriculture. Number 2, employment and skilling. Number 3, inclusive human resource development and social justice. 4, manufacturing and services. 5, urban development. 6, energy security. 7, infrastructure. 8, innovation, research and development. And 9, next generation reforms. Subsequent budgets will build on these and add more priorities and actions. A more detailed formulation will be carried out as part of the economic policy framework about which I will speak later in this speech. This budget details some of the specific actions to be initiated in the current year towards fulfillment of these priorities, with potential for transformative changes. The budget also covers some of the previously made announcements with intent to strengthen them and step up their implementation for expediting our journey towards the goal of Vikasit Bharat. Priority 1, productivity and resilience in agriculture. Transforming agricultural research. Our government will undertake a comprehensive review of the research agricultural research set up to bring the focus on raising productivity and developing climate resilient varieties. Funding will be provided in challenge mode, including to the private sector. Domain experts, both from the government and outside, will oversee the conduct of such research. Release of new varieties. New 109 high-yielding and climate-resilient varieties of 32 field and horticultural crops will be released for cultivation by farmers. Natural farming. In the next 2 years, 1 crore farmers across the country will be initiated into natural farming, supported by certification and branding. Implementation will be through scientific institutions and willing gram panchayats. 10,000 need-based bio-input resource centers will be established. Missions for pulses and oil seeds. For achieving self-sufficiency in pulses and oil seeds, we will strengthen their production, storage, and marketing. As announced in the interim budget, a strategy is being put in place to achieve Atmanirbharta for oil seeds such as mustard, groundnut, sesame, soybean, and sunflower. Vegetable production and supply chains. Large-scale clusters for vegetable production will be developed closer to major consumption centers. We will promote farmer-producer organizations, cooperatives, and startups for vegetable supply chains, including for collection and storage and marketing. Digital public infrastructure for agriculture. Buoyed by the success of the pilot project, our government, in partnership with the states, will facilitate the implementation of the digital public infrastructure in agriculture for coverage of farmers and their lands in 3 years. During this year, digital crop survey for Kharif using the DPI will be taken up in 400 districts. The details of 6 crore farmers and their lands will be brought into the farmer and land registries. Further, the issuance of Jan Samarth-based Kisan credit cards will be enabled in 5 states. Shrimp production and export. Financial support for setting up a network of nucleus breeding centers for shrimp brood stocks will be provided. Financing for shrimp farming, processing, and export will be facilitated through NABARD. National Cooperation Policy. Our government will bring out a national cooperation policy for systematic, orderly, and all-round development of the cooperative sector, fast-tracking growth of rural economy and generation of employment opportunities on a large scale will be the policy goal. This year, I have made a provision of 1.52 lakh crore rupees for agriculture and allied sectors. Priority 2, employment and skilling. Employment-linked incentive. Our government will implement following 3 schemes for employment-linked incentive as part of the Prime Minister's package. These will be based on enrollment in the EPFO and focus on recognition of first-time employees and support to employees and employers. Scheme A, first-timers. This scheme will provide 1 month wage to all persons newly entering the workforce in all formal sectors. Direct benefit transfer of 1 month's salary in 3 installments to first-time employees, as registered in the EPFO, will be up to 15,000 rupees. The eligibility limit will be a salary of 1 lakh per month. The scheme is expected to benefit 210 lakh youths. Scheme B, job creation in manufacturing. This scheme will incentivize additional employment in the manufacturing sector linked to the employment of first-time employees. An incentive will be provided at specified scale directly both to the employee and the employer with respect to the EPFO contribution in the first 4 years of employment. The scheme is expected to benefit 30 lakh youth entering employment and their employers. Scheme C, support to employers. This employer-focused scheme will cover additional employment in all sectors. All additional employment within a salary of 1 lakh rupee per month will be counted. The government will reimburse to employers up to 3,000 rupees per month for 2 years towards the EPFO contribution for each additional employee. The scheme is expected to incentivize additional employment of 50 lakh persons. Participation of women in the workforce. We will facilitate higher participation of women in the workforce through setting up of working women hostels in collaboration with industry and establishing creches. In addition, the partnership will seek to organize women-specific skilling programs and promotion of market access for women SHG enterprises. Skilling program. I'm happy to announce a new centrally sponsored scheme as the 4th scheme under the Prime Minister's package for skilling in collaboration with state governments and industry. 20 lakh youth will be skilled over a 5-year period. Industrial training institutes will be upgraded in hub and spoke arrangements with outcome orientation. Course content and design will be aligned to the skill needs of industry, and new courses will be introduced for emerging needs. Skilling loans. The model skill loan scheme will be revised to facilitate loans up to 7.5 lakh rupees with a guarantee from a government-promoted fund. This measure is expected to help 25,000 students every year. Education loans. For helping our youth who have not been eligible for any benefit under government schemes and policies, I'm happy to announce a financial support for loans up to 10 lakh rupees for higher education in domestic institutions. E-vouchers for this purpose. E-vouchers for this purpose will be given directly to 1 lakh students every year for annual interest subvention of 3% of the loan amount. Priority 3, inclusive human resource development and social justice, saturation approach. Our government is committed to all-round, all-pervasive and all-inclusive development of people, particularly farmers, youth, women, and the poor. For achieving social justice comprehensively, the saturation approach of covering all eligible people through various programs, including those for education and health, will be adopted to empower them by improving their capabilities. Implementation of schemes meant for supporting economic activities by craftsmen, artisans, self-help groups, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, and women entrepreneurs and street vendors such as the PM Vishwakarma, PM Swanidhi, National Livelihood Missions, and Stand Up India will be stepped up. Purvodaya. The states in the eastern part of the country are rich in endowments and have strong cultural traditions. We will formulate a plan, Purvodaya, for the all-round development of the eastern region of the country, covering Bihar, Jharkhand, West Bengal, Odisha, and Andhra Pradesh. This will cover human resource development, infrastructure, and generation of economic opportunities to make the region an engine to attain Vikasit Bharat. On the Amritsar-Kolkata Industrial Corridor, we will support development of an industrial node at Gaya. This corridor will catalyze industrial development of the eastern region. The industrial node at Gaya will also be a good model for developing our ancient centers of cultural importance into future centers of modern economy. This model shall showcase Vikas Bhi, Virasat Bhi in a growth trajectory. We will also support development of road connectivity projects, namely 1. Patna-Purnia Expressway, 2. Buxar-Bhagalpur Expressway, 3. Bodh Gaya, Rajgir, Vaishali and Darbhanga spurs, and 4. Additional 2-lane bridge over River Ganga at Buxar at a total cost of 26,000 crore rupees. Power projects, including setting up of a new 2,400 megawatt power plant at Pir Painti, will be taken up at a cost of 21,400 crore rupees. New airports, medical colleges, and sports infrastructure in Bihar will be constructed. An additional allocation to support capital investments will be provided. The requests of Bihar government for external assistance from multilateral development banks will be expedited. Andhra Pradesh Reorganization Act. Our government has made concerted efforts to fulfill the commitments in Andhra Pradesh Reorganization Act. Recognizing the state's need for the capital, recognizing the state's need for a capital, we will facilitate special financial support through multilateral development agencies. In the current financial year, 15,000 crore rupees will be arranged with additional amounts in future years. Our government is fully committed to financing and early completion of the Polavaram irrigation project, which is the lifeline for Andhra Pradesh and its as farmers. This will facilitate our country's food security as well. Under the Act, Andhra Pradesh Reorganization Act, for promoting industrial development, funds will be provided for essential infrastructure such as water, power, railways, and roads. In Kopparthi node on the Visakhapatnam-Chennai industrial corridor and Varavakal node on the Hyderabad-Bangalore industrial corridor. An additional allocation will be provided this year towards capital investment for economic growth. Grants for backward regions of Rayalaseema, Prakasham, North Coastal Andhra, as stated in the Act, will be provided. Awas Yojana. 3 crore additional houses under the PM Awas Yojana in rural and urban areas in the country have been announced, for which the necessary allocations are being made. Women-led development. For promoting women-led development, the budget carries an allocation of more than 3 lakh crore for schemes benefiting women and girls. This signals our government's commitment for enhancing women's role in economic development. Pradhan Mantri Janjatiya Unnat Gram Abhiyan. For improving the socio-economic condition of tribal communities, we will launch the Pradhan Mantri Janjatiya Unnat Gram Abhiyan by adopting saturation coverage for tribal families in tribal majority villages and aspirational districts. This will cover 63,000 villages, benefiting 5 crore tribal people. Bank branches in northeastern region. More than 100 branches of India Post Payment Bank will be set up in the northeast region to expand the banking services. This year, I have made a provision of 2.66 lakh crore rupees for rural development, including rural infrastructure. Priority 4, manufacturing and services, support for promotion of MSMEs. This budget provides special attention to MSMEs and manufacturing, particularly labor-intensive manufacturing. We have formulated a package covering financing, regulatory changes, and technology support for MSMEs to help them grow and also compete globally, as mentioned in the interim budget. I'm happy to announce the following specific measures. Credit guarantee scheme for MSMEs in the manufacturing sector. For facilitating term loans to MSMEs for purchase of machinery and equipment without collateral or third-party guarantee, a credit guarantee scheme will be introduced. The scheme will operate on pooling of credit risks of such MSMEs. A separately constituted self-financing guarantee fund will provide to each applicant guarantee cover up to 100 crore rupees, while the loan amount may be larger. The borrower will have to provide an upfront guarantee fee and an annual guarantee fee on the reducing loan balance. New assessment model for MSME credit. Public sector banks will build their own in-house capability to assess MSMEs for credit instead of relying on external assessment. They will also take a lead in developing or getting developed a new credit assessment model based on the scoring of digital footprints of the MSMEs in the economy. This is expected to be a significant improvement over the traditional assessment of credit eligibility based only on asset or turnover criteria. That will also cover MSMEs without a formal accounting system. Credit support to MSMEs during stress period. I'm happy to announce a new mechanism for facilitating continuation of bank credit to MSMEs during their stress period while being in special mention account, SMA stage for reasons beyond their control. MSMEs need credit to continue their business and to avoid getting into the NPA stage. Credit availability will be supported through a guarantee from a government-promoted fund. Mudra loans. The limit of Mudra loans will be enhanced to 20 lakh from the current 10 lakh for those entrepreneurs who have availed and successfully repaid previous loans under the Tarun category. Enhanced scope for mandatory onboarding in trades. For facilitating MSMEs to unlock their working capital by converting their trade receivables into cash, I propose to reduce the turnover threshold of buyers for mandatory onboarding on the trades platform from rupees 500 crore to 250 crore rupees. This measure will bring 22 more CPSCs and 7,000 more companies onto the platform. Medium enterprises will also be included in the scope of the suppliers. SIDBI branches in MSME clusters. SIDBI will open new branches to expand its reach to serve all major MSME clusters within 3 years and provide direct credit to them. With the opening of 24 such branches this year, the service coverage will expand to 168 out of 242 major clusters. MSME units for food irradiation, quality and safety testing. Financial support for setting up of 50 multi-product food irradiation units in the MSME sector will be provided. Setting up of 100 food quality and safety testing labs with NABL accreditation will be facilitated. E-commerce export hubs to enable MSMEs and traditional artisans to sell their products in international markets. E-commerce export hubs will be set up in public-private partnership mode. These hubs, under a seamless regulatory and logistic framework, will facilitate trade and export-related services under one roof. Measures for promotion of manufacturing and services. Internship in top companies. As the fifth scheme under Prime Minister's package, our government will launch a comprehensive scheme for providing internship opportunities in 500 top companies to 1 crore youth in 5 years. They will gain exposure for 12 months to real-life business environment, varied professions, and employment opportunities. An internship allowance of 5,000 per month, 5,000 rupees per month, along with a one-time assistance of 6,000 rupees will be provided. Companies will be expected to bear the training cost and 10% of their internship cost from their CSR funds. Industrial parks. Our government will facilitate development of investment-ready, plug-and-play industrial parks with complete infrastructure in or near 100 cities in partnership with the states and private sector by better using town planning schemes. 12 industrial parks under the National Industrial Corridor Development Program also will be sanctioned.
Veggie paper, no. Please, Petty.
Rental housing. Rental housing with dormitory type accommodation for industrial workers will be, just 1 minute. Rental housing, I repeat, rental housing with dormitory type accommodation for industrial workers will be facilitated in PPP mode with VGF support and commitment from anchor industries. Shipping industry, ownership, leasing, and flagging reforms will be implemented to improve the share of Indian shipping industry and generate more employment. Critical mineral mission. We will set up a critical mineral mission for domestic production, recycling of critical minerals, and overseas acquisition of critical mineral assets. Its mandate will include technology development, skilled workforce, extended producer responsibility framework, and a suitable financing mechanism. Offshore mining of minerals. Our government will launch the auction of the first tranche of offshore blocks for mining, building on the exploration already carried out. Digital public infrastructure applications. Turning to the services sector, I propose development of DPI applications at population scale for productivity gains, business opportunities, and innovation by the private sector. These are planned in the areas of credit, e-commerce, education, health, law and justice, logistics, MSME service delivery, and urban governance. Integrated technology platform for IBC ecosystem. An integrated technology platform will be set up for improving the outcomes under the Insolvency Bankruptcy Code for achieving consistency, transparency, timely processing, and better oversight for all stakeholders. Voluntary closure of LLPs. The services of the Center for Processing Accelerated Corporate Exit, CPACE, will be extended for voluntary closure of LLPs to reduce the closure times. National Company Law Tribunals. The IBC has resolved more than 1,000 companies, resulting in direct recovery of 3.3 lakh crore to creditors. 3.3 lakh crore rupees to creditors. In addition, 28,000 cases involving over 10 lakh crore rupees have been disposed of even prior to admission. Appropriate changes to the IBC, reforms and strengthening of the tribunal and appellate tribunals will be initiated to speed up insolvency resolution. Additional tribunals will be established. Out of those, some will be notified to decide cases exclusively under the Companies Act. Debt recovery. Steps for reforming and strengthening debt recovery tribunals will be taken. Additional tribunals will be established to speed up recovery. Priority 5, urban development. Cities as growth hubs. Working with states, our government will facilitate development of cities as growth hubs. This will be achieved through economic and transit planning and orderly development of peri-urban areas utilizing town planning schemes. Creative redevelopment of cities. For creative brownfield redevelopment of existing cities with a transformative impact, our government will formulate a framework for enabling policies, market-based mechanisms, and regulation. Transit-oriented development. transit-oriented development plans for 14 large cities with a population above 30 lakh will be formulated, along with an implementation and financing strategy. Urban housing. Under the PM Awas Yojana, Urban 2.0, housing needs of 1 crore urban poor and middle-class families will be addressed with an investment of 10 lakh crore rupees. This will include the central assistance of 2.2 lakh crore rupees in the next 5 years. A provision of interest subsidy to facilitate loans at affordable rates is also envisaged. In addition, enabling policies and regulations for efficient and transparent rental housing markets with enhanced availability will also be put in place. Water supply and sanitation. In partnership with state governments and multilateral development banks, we will promote water supply, sewage treatments, and solid waste management projects and services for 100 large cities through bankable projects. These projects will also envisage use of treated water for irrigation and filling up of tanks in nearby areas. Street markets. Building on the success of PM Swanidhi scheme in transforming the lives of street vendors, our government envisions a scheme to support each year over the next 5 years the development of 100 weekly hearts or street food hubs in select cities. Stamp duty. We will encourage states which continue to charge high stamp duty to moderate the rates for all and also consider further lowering duties for properties purchased by women. This reform will be made an essential component of urban development schemes. Priority 6, energy security. Energy transition. In the interim budget, I had announced our strategy to sustain high and more resource-efficient economic growth, along with the energy security in terms of availability, accessibility, and affordability. We will bring out a policy document on appropriate energy transition pathways that balances the imperatives of employment, growth, and environmental sustainability. PM Surya Ghar Muft Bijli Yojana. PM Surya Ghar Muft Bijli Yojana. In line with the announcement in the interim budget, PM Surya Ghar Muft Bijli Yojana has been launched to install rooftop solar plants to enable 1 crore households obtain free electricity up to 300 units every month. The scheme has generated remarkable response with more than 1.28 crore registrations and 14 lakh applications, and we will further encourage it. Pumped storage policy. A policy for promoting pumped storage projects will be brought out for electricity storage and facilitating smooth integration of the growing share of renewable energy with its variable and intermittent nature in the overall energy mix. Research and development of small and modular nuclear reactors. Nuclear energy is expected to form a very significant part of the energy mix for Viksit Bharat. Towards that pursuit, our government will partner with the private sector for 1. Setting up Bharat Small Reactors. 2. Research and development of Bharat Small Modular Reactor. And 3. research and development of newer technologies for nuclear energy. The R&D funding announced in the interim budget will be made available for this sector also. Advanced ultra supercritical thermal power plants. The development of indigenous technology for advanced ultra supercritical thermal power plants with much higher efficiency has been completed. A joint venture between NTPC and BHEL will set up a full-scale 800 megawatt commercial plant using AUSC technology. The government will provide the required fiscal support. Moving forward, development of indigenous capacity for the production of high-grade steel and other advanced metallurgy materials for these plants will result in strong spin-off benefits for the economy. Roadmap for hard-to-abate industries. A roadmap for moving the hard-to-abate industries from energy efficiency targets to emission targets will be formulated. Appropriate regulations for transition of these industries from the current perform, achieve, and trade mode to Indian carbon market mode will be put in place. Support to traditional micro and small industries. An investment-grade energy audit of traditional micro and small industries in 60 clusters, including brass and ceramic, will be facilitated. Financial support will be provided for shifting them to cleaner forms of energy and implementation of energy efficiency measures. The scheme will be replicated in another 100 clusters in the next phase. Priority 7, infrastructure investment by central government. Significant investment the central government has made over the years in building and improving infrastructure has had a strong multiplier effect on the economy. We will endeavor to maintain strong fiscal support for infrastructure over the next 5 years in conjunction with imperatives of other priorities and fiscal consolidation. This year, I have provided 11,11,111 crore rupees for capital expenditure. This would be 3.4% of our GDP. Infrastructure investment by state governments. We will encourage states to provide support of similar scale for infrastructure, subject to their development priorities. The provision of 1.5 lakh crore rupees for long-term interest-free loans have been made this year also to support the states in their resource allocation. Private investment in infrastructure. Investment in infrastructure by private sector will be promoted through viability gap funding and enabling policies and regulations. A market-based financing framework will be brought out. Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana. Phase 4 of the PMGSY will be launched to provide all-weather connectivity to 25,000 rural habitations, which have become eligible in view of their population increase. Irrigation and flood mitigation. Bihar has frequently suffered from floods, many of them originating outside the country. Plans to build flood control structures in Nepal are yet to progress. Our government, through the Accelerated Irrigation Benefit Program and other sources, will provide financial support for projects with estimated cost of 11,500 crore rupees, such as the Kosi Michi intra-state link, and 20 other ongoing and new schemes, including barrages, river pollution abatement, and irrigation projects. In addition, survey and investigation of Kosi-related flood mitigation and irrigation projects will be undertaken. Assam grapples with floods every year by the Brahmaputra River and its tributaries originating outside India. We will provide assistance to Assam for flood management and related projects. Himachal Pradesh suffered extensive losses due to floods last year. Our government will provide assistance to the state for reconstruction and rehabilitation through multilateral development assistance. Uttarakhand too suffered losses due to cloudbursts and massive landslides. We will provide assistance to the state. Recently, Sikkim witnessed devastating flash floods and landslides that wreaked havoc across the state. Our government will provide assistance to the state. Tourism has always been a part of our civilization. Our efforts in positioning India as a global tourist destination will also create jobs, stimulate investments, and unlock economic opportunities for other sectors. In addition to the measures outlined in the interim budget, I propose the following measures. Vishnupad Temple at Gaya and Mahabodhi Temple at Bodh Gaya in Bihar are of immense spiritual significance. Comprehensive development of Vishnupad Temple Corridor and Mahabodhi Temple Corridor will be supported, modeled on the successful Kashi Vishwanath Temple Corridor to transform them into world-class pilgrim and tourist destinations. Rajgir holds immense religious significance for Hindus, Buddhists, and Jains. The 20th Tirthankara Muniswarata temple in the Jain temple complex is ancient. The Saptarishi, or the 7 hot springs, form a warm water Brahmkund that is sacred. A comprehensive development initiative for Rajgir will be undertaken. Our government will support the development of Nalanda as a tourist center, besides reviving Nalanda University to its glorious stature. Odisha's scenic beauty, temples, monuments, craftsmanship, wildlife sanctuaries, natural landscapes, and pristine beaches make it an ultimate tourism destination. Our government will provide assistance for their development to Odisha as well. Priority 8, innovation, research, and development. We will operationalize the Anusandhan National Research Fund for basic research and prototype development. Further, we will set up a mechanism for spurring private sector-driven research and innovation at commercial scale, with a financing pool of 1 lakh crore rupees in line with the announcement in the interim budget. Space economy. With our continued emphasis on expanding the space economy by 5 times in the next 10 years, a venture capital fund of 1,000 crore rupees will be set up. Priority 9, next generation reforms. Economic policy framework. We will formulate an economic policy framework to delineate the overarching approach to economic development and set the scope of the next generation of reforms for facilitating employment opportunities and sustaining high growth. Our government will initiate and incentivize reforms for 1, improving productivity of factors of production, and 2, facilitating markets and sectors to become more efficient. These reforms will cover all factors of production, namely land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship, and technology as an enabler of improving total factor productivity and bridging inequality. Effective implementation of several of these reforms requires collaboration between the center and the states, and building consensus as development of the country lies in development of the states. For promoting competitive federalism and incentivizing states for faster implementation of reforms, I propose to earmark a significant part of the 50-year interest-free loan. Working with the states, we will initiate the following reforms. Land-related reforms and actions, both in the rural and urban areas, will cover land administration, will cover 1, land administration, planning and management, and 2, urban planning usage and building bylaws. These will be incentivized for completion within the next 3 years through appropriate fiscal support. Rural land-related actions. Rural land-related actions will include 1, assignment of unique land parcel identification number, UL PIN, or Bhu-Aadhaar for all lands. 2, digitization of cadastral maps. 3, survey of subdivisions, survey of map subdivisions as per current ownership. 4, establishment of land registry. And 5, linking to the farmers registry. These actions will also facilitate credit flow and other agricultural services. Urban land-related actions. Land records in urban areas will be digitized with GIS mapping. An IT-based system for property record administration, updating, and tax administration will be established. These will also facilitate improving the financial position of urban local bodies. Labor-related reforms. Services to labor. Our government will facilitate the provision of a wide array of services to labor, including those for employment and skilling. A comprehensive integration of e-Shram portal with other portals will facilitate such one-stop solution. Open architecture databases for the rapidly changing labor market, skill requirements, and available job roles, and a mechanism to connect job aspirants with potential employers and skill providers will be covered in these services. Shram Suvidha and Samadhan portal. Shram Suvidha and Samadhan portal will be revamped to enhance ease of compliance for industry and trade. Capital and entrepreneurship related reforms, financial sector vision and strategy. For meeting financing needs of the economy, our government will bring out a financial sector vision and strategy document to prepare the sector in terms of size, capacity, and skills. This will set the agenda for the next 5 years and guide the work of the government, regulators, financial institutions, and market participants. Taxonomy for climate finance. We will develop taxonomy for climate finance for enhancing the availability of capital for climate adaptation and mitigation. This will support achievement of the country's climate commitments and green transition. Variable capital company structure. We will seek the required legislative approval for providing an efficient and flexible mode for financing leasing of aircrafts and ships and pooled funds of private equity through a variable company structure. Foreign direct investments and overseas investment. The rules and regulations for foreign direct investment and overseas investments will be simplified to 1. Facilitate foreign direct investments, 2. Nudge prioritization, and 3. Promote opportunities for using Indian rupee as a currency for overseas investment. NPS Vatsalya. NPS Vatsalya, a plan for contribution by parents and guardians for minors, will be started.